Out of curiosity, can you guys see my screen as the oGV product webinar? Awesome. All right. All right. Thanks, guys, for coming. If you guys don't know, I'm Artie, the MCVP for oGV, so founder responsible for the product. I think I've met most of you, if not all of you, already before. More people hopefully come later. Purpose of this product webinar was last week. We got a lot of national data in because of Sona and membership surveys and so on. So it's a good chance to kind of understand how the last 3 months have gone, as well as understanding what the next few months will look like, or the next few weeks, especially because April is a very busy period. And the reason, it's for the whole product. So we're not only looking at just oGV function or marketing function, but also a lot of TM and finances as well. Just before I start, just a bit of expectations. So please ask any questions. Use this space because it is 2 hours. There is going to be a lot of content, but at the same time, do ask any questions. I'm more than happy to stop and answer questions. There will be a few parts where it'd be good to get everyone's contribution just from what you're doing within your own LC, within your own team, and so on. So use those spaces, give your input, give your contribution. The reason being is that we're all responsible for oGV as a product, and we're all part of it. So it's how can we work together or learn from each other to actually drive the product forward. And another last one is just if I do talk too fast, or I go through things too quickly, or even if I lag out or something, just please let me know so I can repeat it. And if you don't understand, just let me know so I can repeat it as well. So those are just a few of the basic expectations from me. Biggest one, please do ask questions, or please do contribute as much as you can. And if you, I'll be asking regularly throughout if you have any questions and so on. So I did send a screenshot of the agenda to the VPs and LCPs earlier today, and I hope they sent it out to everyone. So the main agenda is just going to be agenda is roughly going to look like this. So I'm just going to go through the last quarter. So not only the last quarter, but also a bit of 2017. So understanding how the summer peak went, how winter peak went, what with the WIG is, the open to app conversion, and just a bit more things about the oGV product, in particular from January up until the second week of April. Then looking at the next 2 months, so what April and May will look like, especially for winter peak, which is happening in July, and summer peak, which is happening at the end of the year, and what we're actually doing for it now. And then working as a product team, so just understanding how working together with oGV, marketing, TM, and finance has actually changed a lot since product tour happened, or since earlier this year. So understanding how we're actually understanding what everyone's role is and what we're actually doing to actually move forward. Then actually, this is the part where it'd be good to get into everyone's input as well. It's just the challenges and successes everyone's facing across the nation. So just from my own interaction with a lot of the VPs, there's about 2 or 3 things that are very common amongst most, if not all, LCs. So I'll go through them, and then it'll be good for other people to share as well. And then just a quick way forward, and then if anyone has any questions at the very end, going through that as well. So the next few slides will be pretty content heavy in terms of numbers and data. I tried to simplify it as much as I could when I was going through it today and yesterday. And also it's more data on a national level, so I didn't actually break it down per LC. If you are interested in your own LC's data or anything, or understanding what your own your LC is going through, at the end, just feel free to message me or let me know, and I'm more than happy to collate that data for you, or even talk to you about it individually. But for now, it's a lot more on the national side. From this, it's most LCs are around the same area, everyone's doing around the same. So a lot of the national data is very similar for almost all LCs. There might be a few outliers here and there. So just before I start, so I hope most people have seen this, or if not, have an idea of this. This is a timeline that we actually have for oGV as a product, not in terms of ISEC in Australia, but this is a timeline that's followed globally. So ISEC as an organization, for oGV, opens, applicants, accepts, approves, realize, completes, all happen around these times. And as you can see, there are like it's very different to how it used to be in the past, and things do happen a lot earlier. Yeah, and so there's two aspects to this. There's a summer peak, which happened last year, end of last year, and and it happened in the first 2 to 3 months of this year, which was more the value delivery side of it and the completes. And now we're currently working on winter peak. And one other thing as well is that we're actually starting to already get results or even plan for summer peak, which is happening at the end of this year. So just understanding that this is the timeline. And right now we're in the middle of April, which is the peak period for applicants accepts and approves. And why this is the case, I'll go through a bit later, but just so you have a bit of understanding, this is the timeline. The data that I'm going to just show is a bit more about the summer peak, the first summer peak, so this summer peak here, and then winter peak as well. Yeah, so in terms of how summer peak went, so this is when people went on exchange. So since, end of August last year, up until about end of March this year. I just kind of who that is, so I can mute in case it doesn't echo. Yeah. Oops, yeah, there it is. Yeah, so this is from end of August to about end of March. We had around 297 approves, 239 realizations, so people actually got an exchange, and out of that, 282 people finished. So there are more people who finished. The reason being is that there were some people who finished in August their exchange. And then because of that, the numbers are a bit skewed. And then the last one is complete. So the thing I said globally is now measuring, like our measure of success is complete. And this summer peak was the first time that we actually worked towards it. And out of around 282 people who finished their exchanges, 135 of them actually became completed, which is a whole standard survey. They had most of the standards delivered. They filled out the surveys and so on. Yeah. So one of the biggest things is that our conversion from realized to complete was actually about 56.5%. This means just over half the people who actually went on exchange actually became completed. And then understanding that this was the first time that we were actually working towards completes. So what is it that we're actually doing? This was also the period where the previous term was ending, and everyone here was starting off in their new term, new roles, whether it be VPs, LCPs, TLs, members, or not even recruited yet. So understanding in that transition period, we managed to achieve 56.5%, which is actually really good. And that learning from those experiences, what actually happened to allow for that, and how can we continue that for winter peak coming up and also summer. And then when we looked between each stage, most of the people who did get approved went on exchange. And then, like I said before, most of the people who went on exchange, there were some extra ones as well. And then out of the people who actually finished, again, about 50% of them did become completed. So understanding that this was the first time they were actually working to this peak, so it was a big learning process, and that we still had a very good conversion rate for it. And then when it came to the standards that were delivered, so there's 16 standards. The three most common standards that, the three standards that were most delivered to all those 135 EPs were these three. These are the top three that Australia was, I guess, the most effective in: outgoing preparation, personal goal setting, and insurance. So this has been something that's all, for me, I've been here for been in ISEC in OGX for about 5 years now. This has always been very consistent. So it's outgoing preparation, personal goal setting, and insurance being the three things that we're actually very good at as ISEC in Australia. And then when it came to the three standards that were the least delivered, it was actually the departure support. So the support from the hosting entity to providing the EP before they leave the country after their exchange. The accommodation that was there, so the expectation, generally accommodation has been one of our biggest issues, where people aren't promised the type of accommodation that they sign up for or when they apply. So understanding that this was a standard that was a big issue for us. And first day of work. So actually the EPs actually provided that support from the hosting entity to actually allow for them to understand what's happening on their first day of work. So looking at these two sets of standards, the ones that were most delivered and the ones that were least delivered, one key thing, which is something to recognize, is that when it comes to the standards that we're final responsible final responsible for as ISEC in Australia, we're actually very good at delivering it. We're very on top. We know what we're doing. We're very good at it. But then when it comes to the standards that the hosting entity is responsible for, which in our case is for most of them, we're actually not the best at setting the expectations with both the EP and the hosting entity and holding them accountable. And this is a big learning over the last 6 months, and also something that we're taking into account moving forward for winter peak and summer peak. And this might be something very oGV heavy, like oGV as a function, but then it's understanding how can marketing utilize this information as well. How can finance invest in these areas to ensure that we're setting those right expectations or working with the hosting entities in the best way? Yeah. And then when it comes to these last 3 months, so currently the winter peak, we've had around 7,300 opens, 200 applicants, 100 accepts, and about 50 approves. So that's for opens, we're actually overachieving our goal as an entity. And then all the LCs combined, everyone's goal is just below 7,000 from memory. Whereas applicants and accepts we're underachieving, but approves we're overachieving. We're overachieving for this time period. Yeah. And then when it comes to our conversions, it's from open to applicant, we're converting about 2.9% of those people who show interest or even sign up and actually getting them to apply. So understanding that ever since last year, even before that, open to applicant has been one of our biggest issues. Biggest bottlenecks in terms of how we're actually focusing on allowing people to actually go on exchange. So what are we actually doing that allows for a 2.9 conversion? What's working and what's not working? And again, I'll go through that in a bit later. For applicant to accept and accept to approve, around 47% for applicant to accept and 55% for accept to approve. These are areas that we haven't heavily focused on in the last few months, yet they're actually pretty high for where they are. They can be a lot higher, but then at the moment, they haven't been a focus across the entity, and yet we're still achieving a high conversion rate in these. So that means our processes are actually pretty good for applicant to approve, but our processes from open to applicant still needs a lot more improvement. And then when it comes to the process time, so how long it actually takes for an applicant to become accepted and how long it takes for an accepted to become approved, it takes on average about 3 weeks for an applicant to become approved. So meaning they apply for a project, they get interviewed by the hosting entity, then they sign the contract, they pay and everything. This is a good improvement from last year, and it's understanding what are we actually doing in this process, how can we make it even faster. And then there's one metric which we don't actually have on Expa, which is open to applicant process time. However, over the last few days, I managed to get a lot of the data for this, and open to applicant process time is something that we can't actively measure on a week-to-week basis. It's something I can measure on a month-to-month basis, or even every few months. On the national side, within LCs, it can be a bit different. Generally, we're aiming for a 48-hour period where when someone signs up, we want them to have a call to action, which means either having a CC, applying, being sent a text with projects, email, or so on. So and then that's a 48-hour follow-up. The time it takes for an open to actually become an applicant is around 13 days on average across the nation. Again, for this information, if LCs aren't tracking it, I can share what every LC has individually for this after this, if people want. But yeah, I'm saying that so for when someone signs up to ISEC as an open, it takes on average about a month for them to get approved. So if we're this is based on the 54 people who actually went through the entire process. So understanding what are we actually doing in that whole timeline, because when someone signs up to a product or service and then a month later they actually get they get guaranteed it, what are we actually doing for that? How can we ensure that it's happening quicker? Yeah. And then when it comes to the opens that we're actually bringing in, on a national, digital marketing happens on a national level, and around 6% of our opens come from digital channels. And then when it comes to physical channels, this is where every LC is working on marketing activities. And then around 82% of our opens that we know of come from physical channels. Unfortunately, yeah, there's around 12% who we don't know which channel they come from, if it's digital or physical. And then yeah, from this it's because on when someone signs up to ISEC, they have the option of listing out how they hear about it, and that's how we know what channel they're coming through. And then when it comes to this, the 3 most effective channels for marketing for opens, based on like data and everything, is stores, events, and word of mouth. These 3 account for stores and events account for more than 50% of the opens, and then word of mouth, along with lecture bashers and flyers, account for a lot more of those physical opens as well. So then when it's understanding this, when it's seeing this, it's understanding what are you actually doing in your LC to allow for effective marketing, so opens can actually hear about ISEC, they sign up, and so on. Are you understanding where your opens are coming from? And then, yeah, what are you actually doing in order to actually get them to apply? Yeah, does that make sense so far for people? Or does anyone have any questions so far? Right. See a few people shaking their heads. Okay. Yeah, and then when it comes to the approvals, so since January 1st, we've had about 54 people been approved, which is actually roughly 200% increase from last year, where we've had more than twice the amount of people being approved in the same time period, which is actually really good. And then with these 54 people, these are where they're going across Australia. This is all the different countries that they're going to, or entities, sorry. And then yeah, almost 60% of the people are going to our national partners, which is actually something very it's something very good, because it shows that by focusing on national partners across the entity, where almost every LC has partners within the national partners, and then on a national level we work with these partners on a day-to-day basis. It's showing that it's actually working, and that's actually increased significantly from previous years. And then following this, there's like a lot of the other entities where it's just one-off approvals. I know Sri Lanka, India, Cambodia, they're entities that I know. I think it was RMIT, MU, UNSW, UQ, those 4, and a few other entities, a few other LCs have partnerships with these countries. And it's also showing that this is working, because like we're partnering with these entities and our results are going with these entities. So it's showing that our IR is actually working, and it's understanding how can we actually continue this and actually boost this. So again, this is coming from different standpoints, where from the marketing level, from the marketing standpoint, how are we integrating our partners throughout our entire process from attraction, and that they're heard of through every touch point. From the finance side, how are we investing in incentives with these partners, or even investments such as flying in people into the country to actually like work or chair a conference, for example. Yeah. And then moving on. So this is a list of names. Does anyone recognize who these people are? I can't see it. Wait, do people recognize? I can't see everyone's videos or anything. EPs. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much these are all the EPs that are approved, and these are the countries that they've been approved to. So 54 EPs. Sorry, not only that, 54 youth from Australia, from all across New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, Western Australia, and these are all the areas that they're going to. So these are rough approximations of where the countries are. Did the best using Google. Yeah, but we have people got like for Winter Peak. This is where those 54 people are going so far. And this is the impact that we're actually already, like in the last 3 months, this is what we've already achieved. Oops. And understanding that in the next month, or next 1 month, how much more can we actually send, and how much more people can we provide this experience to? The green ones being the people who are partners, the blue ones being every other entity. And as you can see, most of our people are going into Asia Pacific, Asia. And this again, it's something we can work well with, because Asia is a time like a how do you say? their operations matches our operations in terms of timeline, in terms of what Australians want, and so on. So how can we work more closely with Asia and send more people here to have that experience of leadership through exchange? Yeah. At the moment, we have no approvals with China, mainland of China. From memory, we do have a few accepts there, but no one's been approved at the moment. Yeah. Okay. Has everyone, or does anyone not know what this is? Yeah. Does anyone not? Has anyone not seen this? I will take that as everyone has seen it. All right. Yeah. So this is our WIG one. I'm not sure how much it's actually been communicated across your LCs. Or within, yeah, how much you've actually seen about this. So WIG being widely important goal, because open to applicant is our largest bottleneck as ISEC in Australia, and we need to understand what we're actually doing in this process so that we can understand what's working and what's not working. And on a week-to-week basis, this is what's been this is how our conversion has been. And then understanding that in certain periods, oops, where is it? There. Yeah, in certain periods there was O-Week, March Momentum as a campaign, and also Action April as another campaign. Where O-Week was, we kind of knew there was, from memory, I think we had about 5,000 opens come in those 2 weeks nationally, and then roughly 11 applicants. So that's why conversion dropped a lot, and it was kind of expected. And then March Momentum, where it was more focused on activity from the oGV functional side. And from here, understanding, okay, what was it that was actually done to kind of allow for us to understand why it was like that, or why it was why it was like that. Yeah, and then so from March Momentum, we increased the conversion by about just below 2%. And then there was Action April, which is now the current campaign, which is a lot more focused on, it's on the entire process of open to approval. However, it's more focused on, if you might have realized that the challenges on the week-to-week level or the LC missions are more focused on the open to applicant conversion processes. So understanding that this is our WIG and understanding what's actually happening within LCs and what's to allow for our conversion to be the way it is. And then what this looks like on an LC level, out of all the 11 LCs, this is everyone's conversion rates, what their goals and what everyone's actual conversions are in this time period of January 1st to yesterday. And I just want to give a shout out to UQ, because UQ is one of the LCs where it's around, yeah, it's considerably higher than a lot more LCs. And it's understanding what is UQ doing to allow for their conversion to be this way, and how can we learn from them as an LC and actually learn from this, not only copy and paste what they're doing into your own LC or into your own operations, but understand, okay, how can we take the idea of what they're doing and bring it in? So for example, when I've spoken with Alex, the VP oGV for UQ, it's a lot like the culture of following up on an open when they sign up and actually contacting them very early on, and then following up and then making sure that they apply, or if they're not interested, they don't apply. That culture is very strong within UQ portfolio. If anyone is from UQ, you can confirm or deny. This is what I have based on speaking to Alex. Yeah. And then from this, it's like for the other LCs, understanding how, again, like I've been saying, what are you actually doing in the open to applicant process? Like I mentioned before, our applicant to accept and accept to approve conversions are actually pretty good. So if we want to actually allow for more people to go on exchange, how can we focus on this initial stage and allow for more people to go through that funnel? And then I just want to ask, if you guys could just type, because I can't see everyone's video, who's actually seen this before? Like when it comes to open to applicant, there should be 3 key things that every single person, every single member, every single person who contacts an open does, and it should be these 3 things. Who's actually seen this? Lama. Oh, awesome. Okay, so quite a few people have. That's really glad to hear. Okay, yeah. So when it comes to this, what I'm showing you is, again, like when it comes to open to applicant, is understanding these are 3 simple things that every single individual can do, which allows for us to actually understand whether people are actually being followed up on. Doing these three things doesn't mean you're going to get an applicant just by contacting them. These are just 3 of the bare minimums that we need to do, and it's like understanding how do we actually do it that allows for us to understand if people are actually applying or not. So actually following up within 48 hours, because the longer we wait for to contact someone, the more likely they are to like lose interest. Making sure that when you talk about partners, as you saw before, our partners are the people who, like the partners of the LCE, the entity, sorry, where we're actually growing, like they're the ones where they have projects available for us, we're growing with them a lot, and so on. And then every time you contact an open, always having a call to action. This call to action doesn't have to be a CC. It can be a text. It can be inviting them to another event. You can get them to apply on the spot, buy it like on the phone, so on. So making sure you have that clear call to action. Yeah. Another thing is understanding what percentage of opens are you actually contacting within 48 hours. This is again a follow-on from the first one of contacting within 48 hours. And then another thing, like how much are you actually following up on an open until they're not interested, rather than just when you contact them and they say, oh, I'm not free at the moment, or I'm not interested. How much do you actually follow up until you actually get a hard no or a hard not interested, and then following that, going the extra step to understand why they're not interested. If you can understand why they're not interested, then it's also like you can actually use that information to tailor marketing events. But not only that, you can also invest in the areas where people aren't interested to like address that as an issue and move forward from it, so people do become interested and that doesn't become an issue. So for example, if people aren't interested because of money, working with finance and marketing to be able to come up with a way where money doesn't become an issue, whether that be through discounts or whether that be through financial incentives or so on. So email lead nurturing sent out to all opens on a weekly level. So all VP marketing should be final responsible for this and doing this, where on a weekly basis, emails should be sent out, and this should be there to kind of nurture them, but understanding how effective are the emails that you're sending out to them, and how are you actually changing the content within this. For example, are you actually communicating events that you're having or communicating certain projects? And the last one, so running conversion events, this being different styles, so group CCs, information sessions, action spaces, matching manias, and so on. I know RMIT, they were sharing like 2 weeks ago in a commission chat, and then also on the Mac oGV Facebook group about how they do tailored action spaces. So how can we learn from something like that and implement it across LCs, or how can you do group CCs, or even work off what's available? For example, Pat was organizing National Matching Manias happening like 2 weeks ago. How can we leverage off those events as well in order to address your open to applicant bottlenecks? All right. Before I go on, does anyone have any questions? Because again, I know it is a lot of data stuff. Okay, I will take that as a no. Right. Yeah. So, as I mentioned before, before I go on, last week the membership survey was also due, and from that survey, we got a lot of insight as to how the members, the members, TLs, VPs, LCPs all feel across ISEC. And then from that, I took a few of the survey questions out and looked at oGV marketing responses in particular. So this is more tailored to the product. Yeah, but when it comes to this, it's understanding like these are all out of 5. I enjoy doing my I enjoy doing my work and empowered to do the best here. I have a good idea about what is expected of me in my role. I have confidence on the strategies that we set to achieve our team goals. My team leader gave me the space to co-create strategies with them. I have a good idea about what I still need to learn and do my job well, and my on-the-job training has been effective. So these are all various, I guess, how to say? Yeah, these are all just some of the questions, and they're all very tailored to like how like as a member or a team leader feels. And as you can see, these are all like relatively high. Like they're all above 4 out of 5. So it's like people who are in oGV or marketing, they actually feel like what they're going through is a good experience, and that's just based on the surveys. Roughly 200 people feel this, like out of, no, not 200, 150 people, which is most of the oGV marketing membership. And a lot of the things that we're delivering as oGV products, so whether that be from VPs, TLs, and so on, has been effective for members. So how we actually understand that what we're doing, like what members, team leaders, VPs are actually going through it, is something that they're actually having a good experience in. And then going even further, it's like when it comes to the role of being an oGV product, or oGV as a function or marketing as a function, the role that they're in takes advantage of an individual's strengths. The challenges that people face allow for someone to learn. The workload tends to be overwhelming, and people know what they need to succeed, and people receive valuable feedback. Again, all these are very good scores. In case anyone did misunderstand, because I misunderstood when I saw it, the 3.29 for workload tends to be overwhelming is actually good, because it means that the workload's actually not too overwhelming for a lot of the people. So again, all these scores are very good. Like people are actually having a good experience. People are being challenged. People are utilizing their strengths. People actually know what they need to be successful, and they get feedback. And these are all very good things, because it shows that the people who are participating in the oGV product are actually having a good experience, having a good in a good environment, and going through a lot. So then when it goes from this, it's understanding what is actually happening then. So for, when it comes to this question, as an individual, I felt productive in my first 10 days in ISEC. Across the nation, the average for this, so regardless of, so for everyone in oGV, marketing, finance, TM, LCPs, and IGT, the average was 3.5. For oGV and marketing, it was 3.79 out of 5. So that's actually saying that people weren't, like the first 10 days people had in ISEC weren't as productive as as they should be. So yet people are getting people are having a good experience, but when it comes to what they're actually doing and everything, how it's actually being translated in an effective way, but also in a fast way. So just a quick question, and again, if people could type or even unmute and speak, or just say yes or no, could people just say, when it comes to as an individual or within your own team or even your LC, who spends a lot of time learning, doing a lot of education, a lot of preparing, like making sure you know exactly what's happening before doing everything? So who does that? Yeah. Okay, thanks, Sammy. Other people? Like, if you could type, that'd be great.
Can I speak?
Yeah, you can speak.
I was gonna say, I think, in terms of, I'm answering this question, I guess, in terms of the general LC, but in terms of when we do inductions and things like that, it's making sure that finding the balance between making sure that they have the resources to be able to do what they need to do, but also allowing them to do as a form of learning. So for example, it's when they have to do cold calls and stuff, and it's giving them information on how it's meant to be done, but also allowing them to practice in terms of learning what works well and what doesn't work well as well. If that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, kind of the same point as what Lama was saying. But yeah, for a lot of people, it's a lot of learning by doing, and then learning as you go on. Again, when it came to the first 10 days, we did recruit, people recruit a lot early, but how we utilized our first 10 days, based on this question alone, based on a lot of the other questions, it was understanding that a lot of the time was just spent on training, educating, and this actually continued for about 2 to 3 weeks. So how can we actually learn from this, and understanding that when it comes to oGV as a product, the best way to actually learn is by not only just doing, but having that material to support. So for example, like having the resources required and then learning it and then doing it on the spot and then using those materials continuously throughout, and so on. So then when it comes to that as well, it's like as an LC, as a team leader, as a VP, as an LCP, more in particular for TLs, VPs, and members, LCPs, it's like don't only focus on the fluffy things, being like, oh, why are you here? Why am I here? And all that type of stuff, or bonding or education. It's understanding that how can we integrate, or how do we have the three of these, as well as learning by doing, as well as anything else throughout the entire experience. Rather than doing it, okay, we're gonna do understand why I'm here in ISEC, why do I connect, and then going to bonding as an LC, bonding as a team, and then going to education, and then going to doing the activity. So how can we integrate this throughout and do it all together? And as a team leader, as a VP, as an LCP, understanding that this is like how you're actually doing things within your own team, and how you're actually translating this throughout. So from that, it's like, because April is a very busy month where we need to focus also from opens all the way through to approvals. How do we ensure that we don't just spend time educating people on different processes, but then we educate them, but also have them learn while doing it, so that they learn from the experience. Yeah. So that's a bit more on the people side of things. And then when it comes to finances, so this is a very, very rough estimate based on average of all 11 LCs. When it does come to the amount of money LCs were investing in attraction, consideration, value delivery, and brand advocacy, we're investing about 31% in attraction, 15% in consideration, 50% in value delivery, and around 2% in brand advocacy. This again is it's an average of all LCs. So there are some LCs who might, not that any LC did this, but some LCs might allocate 90% in one area. And for this, I just took an average of all LCs. The recommended allocation is actually 50% in attraction, 20% in consideration, 20% in value delivery, and 10% in brand advocacy. One thing to point out is that when we actually look at our results, when we look at our results, we've actually achieved our opens goals. We've got 7,000 opens, and that's from spending 31% of our budget on a national level. So how can we understand, how can we then invest, and if we know our bottleneck is in consideration, in particular open to applicant, how can we invest more in this area? Not necessarily in the customers and the EPs, but in our people, in order to improve open to applicant processes, so that consideration works out and that our conversion rates allow for more people to go on exchange. So then, as not only as EB, or not only as VPs, not only as team leaders, but everyone who's involved in the product, actually working together to understand what are the things that we can actually invest in to drive activity, to drive results, whether that be rewards for people doing the actual operations, or investments into EPs, or investments into particular members to learn more and do more, and so on. Yeah. Okay. And then the last one on the data before I move on is just growth. So before I show the growth, just want to recognize that from before 2017, opens were actually measured in a different way. We actually didn't get people to sign up onto Expa. We got them to do an EOI form before going to Expa. So that's why opens is it's something we can only compare to from last year. And from 2017, our growth is already 124%. We've actually grown the number of opens. I think it was 5,000 last year. Right now we're on 7,000. And the reason I'm saying that there is because in the graph, it will be very skewed, adding like 7,000 versus like 200. So that's why it's separate. Yeah. And then when it comes to over the last 3 years, so 2016, 2017, 2018, we're actually growing as an entity for oGV. And almost every single LC is actually growing from the previous year. So that is something very big to recognize, that as ISEC in Australia, as LCs, we're all growing from our previous year. We're doing a lot more. And this is showing doing recruitment a lot earlier, having our timeline a lot earlier, investing a lot of resources into IR and integrating IR throughout our customer flow. These are all initiatives that we tried for the first time this year, and they're all things that have been working out because it shows that we're actually growing by considerable amounts. like when it comes to opens, we're actually growing by 123% from previous year, which means that we're having more applicants applying right now. And this again is in the same time period. We're having a lot more accepts, almost double the amount of accepts happen. And then as a result, because we're having almost double the amount of the accepts, we're also having double the amount of approvals from the previous year. So then, yeah, from my side, not only from my side, from the MC side, and also globally, we are being recognized a lot for a lot of the growth that we're going through this period. Like in March alone, we grew around 400% in oGV. And that's, again, something very big to recognize because what we're doing is working and we're actually being recognized for it. Yeah, so that's all the data and everything. If anyone is curious, I'll share the slides and everything later. I'm not sure I'm not sure if people have actually seen this link, but all this data is actually available and it's updated on a weekly basis by me and Pat on for marketing and oGV, and anyone has access to see it, so you can actually see what other LCs are doing and learn from each other, or even approach each other. But it's at this link, and I'll share it with you later. So yeah, that's pretty much all the data stuff. Does anyone actually have any questions or any comments, either to me or either to anyone else? Yeah. Again, if you don't, could you just type no or like wave, just so I have an idea? Because I can only see like 4 people's cameras. Okay, most people do not have questions. All right. So, well, shit. Sorry. So the next part I'll talk about is the next 2 months. So understanding what April and May in particular are going to be like. I'm not breaking it down by month, but more by peaks. And just understanding that as oGV as a product, this is what we're going to be going into for the next 2 months. So the first one being winter peak. Again, winter peak being in July, what's actually going to be happening. So I showed earlier the timeline. This is the period where we're in right now, where we're halfway through April, and April and May are going to be a very busy months. Where right now we need to be focusing a lot on applicants, accepts, and approvals. So that May is more the relationship building, so that we can focus on value delivery and completes. Additionally, like this is more the ISEC timeline. The other timeline that to take into account is like your own uni timeline, because almost everyone here is studying. Again, this is from memory, like 2 years ago, how the uni timeline is. But like most people will spend a lot of June. Like June is your exam period, so then you don't want a lot of operations to be happening in June, and you want most of the brunt of the work to have happened earlier for ISEC. That way you can focus as well on like your own studies and balance your work and manage your own time effectively. And also May is the last few weeks of the semester, the period right before exams. So and then because of this, depending on what you study, it's also the time where a lot of assignments start to be are due. Not only that, a lot of people start to focus on study, not only as ISECtors, but as customers as well as students in general. So because May is a busy period for this in terms of uni, it's understanding that the next 2 weeks of April is actually going to be heavily focused on applicants, accepts, and approvals, so that it's we're not shifting more work in May. And then in May, we realize, things aren't happening because people are focusing on studies, and then it's just going to be too late to do anything. We're acting early and doing things a lot earlier. Yeah. So again, like I mentioned, when it comes to winter, globally, timeline has shifted, and April is actually the final push. So I'm not sure if people have actually faced it already, but a lot of the projects that are available right now for winter peak are already starting to fill up. So biggest case of this is Romania, where most of Romania's projects globally have already filled up. So it is hard to get accepted and approved into Romania for winter right now. And the next 2 weeks, it's only going to increase from here, where it's going to get more difficult based on what entity people are applying to. So that's why we do need to understand that this is the reality of ISEC. We can't wait until May. We can't wait until 2 weeks from now. We need to be acting now. For those people who do want to go on exchange in winter. And then one of the biggest things from this is understanding that how do we utilize action spaces? And action spaces aren't like something on top of operations. They're not a strategy. They're not something big or anything. It's understanding how do we look at it as part of our day-to-day processes, day-to-day operations, and even as part of team standards. Action spaces are one of the simplest ways where you can actually bring together a lot of people, learn from each other, and actually do things together to actually bring forward not only activity, but also the culture within your own team, within your own LC. Because when it comes to the team standards, for everyone who is aware or not, for those who aren't aware of team standards, there is a team standard about I can't remember the exact name, but it's more in the performing stage from memory, about working as a team, or along those lines. And action space is part of that. So it's like understanding that like team standards, if you're a team leader, a VP, or an LCP, it's a part of operations, and how we do it. It's understanding that action spaces are a very simple way to do a lot of the activity, especially knowing the next few weeks are going to be busy. Something I used to do when I was VP and LCP is we used to do action spaces in a way where we booked out an entire room so people can come study in the same place. People can come study together. And not only that, when they're taking a break or procrastinating from study, they can do their own, do ISEC work together. Or the other way around, when they're procrastinating from ISEC work, they do uni work together. So like action spaces are very big, very simple things you can do, very effective, in not only in driving activity, but also in driving the culture within your LC. They're also a very big area where you can invest into. As like your people are the ones who are going to bring in the most operation, your people are one of your biggest assets. So how can you invest in your LC, invest in your members, invest in your TLs to actually allow for people to actually want to do things. And another thing as well is that this winter peak, for everyone's individual goals as well as your own LC goals, this winter peak is a key period where you're going to have to achieve your personal goals and your LC goals. So understanding like what are you actually doing in this period, and how can you actually learn from that, and how are you actually getting feedback consistently. Previously, I showed one of the questions that people answered in the TM survey was that people get feedback from their team leader. So as a team leader, as a VP, as an LCP, how are you consistently giving feedback to your team as individuals or as a team so that they can work towards their personal goals and develop and actually achieve their personal goals, and in turn achieve the LC goals. And then just keeping in mind that right now, like the next 2 weeks is very critical in terms of for winter exchange. If we do want to work towards winter exchange and allow for more people to go, the next 2 weeks is going to be the critical period for that, because May should be more focused on relationship building and actually delivering the standards, so that more like we're building the relationship, setting the expectations, and allowing for people to go at the end of the allowing for all 16 standards to be delivered together. And then the other thing we have to understand as well is that in the next 2 months, we're also working on summer peak. So I just want to ask a quick question. Who's actually had EPs interested in exchange for the end of the year? I see like 2 people put their hands up. So like it is something very common. Again, when I've spoken to a lot of people individually as VPs, even some of the LCPs and team leaders, a lot of people say that have faced this as a have faced this where EPs just want to go at the end of the year, and that's okay. One follow-up question from that: when people say they want to go at the end of the year, what do you do as a team, as an individual? What's your strategy to it, or what's your approach to it?
I usually just either ask them to try applying now, just to allow them to look for projects, also with the application process, it also gives them a feel of what they're going to have to go through if, let's say, they do want to apply again in the future. And there's no harm in applying early anyway. If not, then it's just constantly following up, which can get pretty tiring.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Sammy, Alyssa, and Jessica. Yeah. So like when it comes to this as well, understanding, yeah, what are you actually doing when people say they're interested? Are you saying, oh, we'll contact you again in like August, or are you actually getting them to apply? Or yeah, are you supporting them in finding projects? Again, this is where marketing can play a heavy role with oGV, and oGV needs to play a big role with marketing as well. It's like, yeah, the biggest thing is that if you have people interested in summer, don't wait until the end of the don't wait until semester 2. There are opportunities already available. A lot of entities, like I talked about before, because the timeline has shifted a lot. A lot of people have already started. A lot of entities have already started opening projects for the end of the year. Yeah, Thailand, Taiwan already have opened it, and then the other thing, this is where oGV and marketing should be working together very closely, is that oGV can be understanding who has projects available, and marketing can be already like getting that information ready, preparing that, and already start to promote Summer Peak like towards the end of this semester rather than beginning of next semester. Yeah. So one of the biggest things is that if you have local partners, push your partners to actually open the opportunities now, because one of the advantages that we have as Australia is that we send a lot more people in at the end of the year, because again, that's our reality. And if other entities and partners know this, we can actually work with them and start doing it now. So like Jason has said, Taiwan and Thailand have actually done this. So I've been talking with the MCVPs of Thailand and Taiwan closely about this, and I've been pushing them for the last few weeks to actually open up the opportunities now so that we can start approving for the end of the year. And they have. And not only them, Romania has already done it. Vietnam is in the process of it, and Indonesia, some LCs have done it already. That's from the national partners. And then globally, a lot of entities have done it, and I'm already pushing a lot of other MCs around the world to open up opportunities now, so that we can start, if people are interested in going in summer, we can start getting them to apply now. We can start getting them to be approved now. And we can also, we can already start the ball rolling for Summer Peak. Yeah. And again, for this as well, is that if you have trouble finding projects for summer, reach out to Jason, who's also the IR responsible, and he'll be working on collating that as well. It's a good thing he's here as well. And then with the national partners, I'll be pushing them a lot more and communicating that a lot more as well. Yeah, so that's when it comes to the next 2 months. Again, any questions when it comes to this? Or is everyone all good? I will take it as people are good. Okay. All right. Before I go to the next part, could I just ask, who's the team leader, VP, and member here, or LCP? I said, Sammy, which one are you? Are you a TL or? Thanks. Okay. Is there anyone here who's a member? I recognize a lot of the VPs and LCPs. Okay, so most people are TL. So, okay. So then, okay, the next part will be a lot more, I guess, not relatable, relevant for anyone who's managing a team. So especially for most of you, because a lot of you are TLs, even the VPs, even the LCPs. And it's content that has been covered a lot of the time before. but it's understanding that it's very important as well. And so yeah, it's so oGV product team. So quick question again, like if anyone could type or even unmute and just mention, like how does oGV marketing, TM, and finance actually work together to drive the product? Does anyone? Okay, Panda. And what about finance, oGV, and marketing in that as well? Or for other people as well? Awesome. Finance and TM? Finance and marketing, sorry. All right. Yep, that's one part of finance. And then, yeah, just one last thing. Does anyone have marketing? Marketing does brand attraction. Yeah. Is near synergy? Oh. Okay, yeah. So pretty much, yeah, like what yeah, what Panda and Alyssa mentioned. Those are like some of the like the ways that we see how they work together. But if you like, yeah, oGV does consideration and VD activities. Marketing does more attraction and BA activities. TM understands and supports through the people operations to understand what's actually happening. How do we actually improve this? How do we ensure TLs and VPs know what they're like, how they're managing people, how they're leading people. And finance is understanding and executing the budget through whether they're investments, whether it's incentives, and so on. But one key thing is that these are all things that they're very separate areas if you think about it. It's like these are areas where each function works, and then how they actually work together for everything. It's very small overlaps, or very like it's very broad or very specific. So when you go into a bit more detail, one of the biggest things is of how they actually work together is through yeah. So I just want to ask, what's the greatest asset in your product, in the oGV product? Whether it's time, money, resources, people, what else? Projects available. I don't, yeah. Does anyone else have anything? Any suggestions? No one? Okay, I was, yeah. So kind of what Alyssa said, so actually the greatest asset that we have, not only in our product, but in ISEC, is the people. And why this is the case is that if when you look at things, people are the ones, like the members are the ones who are actually on the ground. They're the ones working with EPs. They're the ones contacting EPs. They're the ones going through the entire process. They're the ones who are doing the operations, and they're the ones who understand whether it's working, or they understand what's actually working and what isn't working, to put it in the simplest way. As a VP, as a TL, even as an LCP, even as an MC, we don't always get to do the operations and actually see what's working and not working. Or like we see things through a very data-oriented perspective, or we do things here and there, or and so on. But it's actually members who are actually the ones doing the operations and understanding what's working, what's not working. And this can be in different sets. This can be such as they see the education that's being provided to them from the EB, from the TLs is working. The training that's provided, the execution of it more so, or the effectiveness of it. Your members are the ones who will know most. The members are the ones who are going to know whether it's working or not. So for example, I was talking last week with almost all the VP oGVs individually. Understanding that across ISEC in Australia, open to applicant is still the largest bottleneck for oGV as a product. Yet as VPs, as MC, we don't know the key reasons why. The only way we're going to know why open to applicant is an issue or a bottleneck is by actually talking to members and understanding what is it that they're doing, what is it that's working, what are they hearing, what are they experiencing, and so on. And so in that sense, that's why people are our greatest asset when it comes to the product. And then as VPs, as TLs, as LCPs, who are all responsible for the oGV product, how are you actually using your time? Like, this is not a rhetorical question, like if people could type or even respond. How are you actually using your time to understand what members are going through? And what specifically do you ask or talk about in a one-to-one? Awesome, okay. And another question from that is, in your one-to-ones or interactions with your members, so as TLs, interactions with your members, as VPs, interactions with your team leaders, and as LCPs, interactions with your VPs, how much do you spend, how much of your one-to-ones or your team meetings or your check-ins do you spend telling people what to do or telling people this is what should happen versus asking them what's going on, how can they do things, or asking them what's actually going on? Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, so for different people, it's different, like roughly the same. Some people are others. Okay, So then, yeah, for like everyone who's sharing, it's like understanding what is, because most of the people who typed, I think it was, yeah, most of you are OTLs. So it's understanding like how can you learn from each other as well? What versus like with what's working and what's not working. A lot of the time, as VPs, as team leaders, as LCPs, we tend to see like the reason things aren't happening is because members are demotivated or members are like not managing their time or so on. And we tend to like kind of like look at members as the bottleneck behind the operations. But it's actually understanding what, yeah, like a lot of you are saying, is like what are you asking them to actually understand what are they going through, and understand how can you support them as a team leader, as a VP, as an LCP, to actually understand, okay, this is what they need, and how can you provide that, or how can you help them come to that decision themselves. Again, one thing very big here is because people are the greatest asset that you have in the LC, and especially for the product, how can we work with finance to actually invest in our people? So for example, it's like the people who are actually doing a lot of activity, to actually invest in them as a reward, or the people who need support in certain areas to do better, invest in them to actually get the training and the education, for example. Again, I know one thing we did when I was VP, was that we actually invested in our VP, sorry, yeah, we invested in our VP marketing to get Photoshop experience to train the rest of the marketing team. And that was because we understood that was a huge bottleneck affecting the marketing operations, and that we decided to invest in it because we saw that as a way forward, and it worked. Yeah, so regardless if you're like, when you look at how can finance play a big role, it's not only thinking how does finance play a role with the EPs or with the customers, but how can we work with finance as a team leader, as a VP, as an LCP, to understand how can we invest in our members. Yeah, and then from this as well, understanding, yeah, so this is what I asked before, is like just when it comes to this, when you're talking to your members and so on, it's just understanding, like, don't just jump straight to always goals, like the personal goals that people have, or the personal goals that your team has, or so on. Sorry, the LC goal that you have. Have a conversation to actually understand why things are happening. When looking at the membership survey responses, this was actually good because a lot of the people are being challenged by the work they're doing. A lot of the people are like excited by the work they're doing, or utilizing their strengths more. So it's going to show that a lot of the way like everyone here as a team leader, as a VP, as an LCP, is actually, it's working well for the oGV membership. The thing that's kind of there as a bottleneck at the moment is understanding how can we translate this into action. So like what specifically is actually going wrong, and how can we see something action oriented out of it, and actually being effective from that. So that's kind of like the next step that we need to go, because a lot of people are having good experiences in the product. Yeah, and like I've been saying, one of the biggest things is that as a product team, it's investing in your members, whether that be through providing more support as a team leader, as a VP, as an LCP, whether that be investing like financial resources, whether that's investing in terms of recognition or so on. Because this is one of the biggest ways for that. And then it's like, kind of like a way forward for this is when it comes to the next 2 months, especially because when you look at the ISEC timeline, things are happening a lot earlier. But not only that, when you look at your own university timeline, exam period is going to be coming up soon. So people are going to start to feel very, I guess, not burnt out. Time management is going to be something that will kind of become difficult for people. Whether that's just because more work is coming from uni, so they can't balance the two, or something else. So how can you, as a VP, LCP, or a team leader, support your members? So LCP supporting VPs, VP supporting team leaders supporting members, to actually understand what they're going through and allow for them to actually achieve, or actually develop their own, develop and achieve their own personal goals, which in turn develops the LC goal. Does that make sense for everyone? Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then when it comes to that as well, it's understanding that we don't do a full swing and don't invest or we don't only focus purely on our members. It's understanding what's the balance that we take to focus on like the internal, which is our members, and the external, which is the opens and the EPs. And then this will differ for each LC, but this is something where as a product team, involving the team leaders, the VPs, you will understand more effectively what's happening based on those interactions with your members. You'll know how you can invest with other areas. So in this sense, similar to members, is understanding what customers want, and then how can you learn from members that this is what customers want, and this is how you can actually use this information to improve. So for example, it's understanding if people want certain countries, you're partnering with those countries more than other countries. Or if people can't go on exchange because of financial reasons, you're using that information to have a strategy to address. Yeah, so one of the biggest things is just look at what customers actually want and look at what they're facing, and then invest in these areas. So for the biggest, like I said, biggest one is that if customers aren't applying because of finances, how can you actually change how we communicate? So that being where you talk about cheaper projects where accommodation, meals are provided, or it's in Asia because flights are a lot cheaper, or you provide incentives where people get discounts. So understanding that aspect as well. And within your own LC and product team, you understand, okay, what's the balance that you need to take between investing in your membership as well as investing in the strategies for opens and EPs. And then again, as TLs, as VPs, LCPs as well, everyone who's part of the product plays the biggest role in this, especially members as well, because they're the ones on the ground who do this day to day and understand what's going on. And one of the biggest things as well is that when it comes to hearing a strategy or an approach, whether that be from a member, whether that be from your EB, whether that be from the MC, whether it be global, whether it's anything, the best way to don't just shut it down and then not do it and then just not even try. One of the biggest examples with this can be seen with IR, where over the last 2 years, 1.5, 2 years, IR is something that's been people were shutting down very easily at the beginning, but now that we actually see that it's actually allowing for ISEC in Australia and oGV to grow and actually do a lot more better than we have in the past. Not only that, one of the biggest ones, if people were involved in it, is recruitment, where recruitment traditionally happened in March. This year we shifted it to happen a lot earlier, and there was it was something that worked, and it worked because we tried. So in the same sense is that if members have ideas, if you as a team leader or VP have an idea, or if there are random ideas that you hear about, how can you look into it and approach it or even think about it rather than just shutting it down straight away. So that's one of the biggest things when it comes to how the product team needs to work together, whether you're finance, whether you're marketing, whether you're TM, and whether you're oGV. But everyone in that, those 4 functions need to work together for the oGV product. That's the last part. And then the next part's more understanding what different people are going through as well. But any questions so far or clarifications? Awesome. All right. So, so I'll go through the challenges and successes. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, I'll talk about 2 of them that I've seen consistently through my interactions with everyone individually or with LCs or even looking at numbers. And it's the one challenge and one success that we've actually seen big areas, and then from that it'd be good if people can also share what they're facing in their LC as things working or things not working. So I'll open up the space as well. So I'll go through the next 2 a bit quicker because they're things I've been talking throughout, and then so one of the biggest successes that we have had over the last 3 months, and something that's going to be heavily continued in the next few months, not even the next few months, for the rest of oGV product, is how IR has been integrated into the customer flow and it's something that we look at not only in consideration or sorry, it's not something that we look at for value delivery only. It's something that we look at from attraction all the way to brand advocacy. Yeah, so when it comes to IR integrated throughout the marketing flow, it's like working with marketing, how oGV and marketing have actually been working a lot more closer together to ensure that like partners are being communicated from the very beginning of the customer flow, and that they're consistently communicated throughout. So like, for example, you talk about it at an event, you talk about it again at a CC, you talk about it when they're applying, and so on. The next one is response time with hosting entities. So this one is very big in when I was talking to Alex from UQ, and I know a lot of other LCs have it as well. But that's the one I remember off the top of my head right now. It's like when an EP applies, whether that be when an EP applies to a hosting entity, how long do you wait before you follow up with the hosting entity about it to actually get the EP to be interviewed or to be accepted? So how you're utilizing different channels such as contacts, Facebook messages, WhatsApp, and so on to follow up for the EP, so things are happening a lot faster. And this is one of the things, it's simple and it might not seem like a lot, but it's actually one of the things that allows for us as an entity, as an LC, to have a fast process time and a high conversion, and in turn it builds trust with the EP. And the last one is the expectations that we're setting. So this is something that we're going to start focusing on a lot more moving into the next few weeks. It's like when it comes to the expectations that we set with our partners and with our customers, what are those expectations, and how are we actually ensuring that those expectations play a heavy role in terms of the value delivery aspect, so the standards that are being delivered. The 3 standards before that I was talking about, where it's accommodation, first day of work, and departure support. How are we setting the expectations so that those standards aren't being let go of? Or how are we setting the expectations early on in May so that we can get marketing material or even invest in EPs to actually allow, or even, to invest in EPs or to get marketing material through the brand advocacy stage. So how are we setting those expectations? There'll be a bigger focus in the next month. And then the other I guess challenge that has been the other challenge across ISEC in Australia is the open to applicant process. So the main 3 things being the follow up when it comes to the EPs, the opens actually applying. How long does it actually take for us to follow up on someone? And then realizing that the longer it takes, the more likely they are to lose interest. This isn't just with ISEC. This is like an industry, I guess. This is within the industry. Any product or service industry is that if you sign up to something and then you hear about it like a month later, you're not as inclined to be. You're not as interested because it's been so long. You've like kind of lost the thought or the motivation behind it. So how are we driving follow up a lot more effectively? Understanding why people are being followed up on or why they aren't being followed up on, and how can we learn from that across the entity, from each other. What are we actually doing when we call, when we text, when we do CCs, and so on? So do you actually know what's working and what's not working with specific calls, with specific texts and CCs? So I know some things that I used to do last year, again, the year before, and some things I've spoken to a few of the people through Product Tour, was that to just randomly see how effective a call is, you get your members to call a fake open and just see how they do things, and then getting feedback from that fake open directly. So for example, I share the story a lot where with RMIT last year, what we did, we got the entire RMIT LC to call all the LCPs and MC last year, but they didn't know it was the LCPs or MC, and they thought we were all opens. And from that, we got a lot of understanding, and then using that information, the EB and the team leaders were able to use that information to understand, okay, this is what the bottlenecks are, this is why things aren't working, how can we tailor the education to be more effective to address these issues. So how can you use strategies like that to understand what's working and what's not working? And the last one, objection handling. So I know this was one thing that a few members shared about in the Facebook group, is like when someone has an objection, what do you actually do in response to it? Do you just accept it? Do you just actually try to find out what you can do about it, or so on? Or do you reach out to other people to see how they address it? Yeah, so it's just understanding this. Like when I hear an gesture, what do you do? Um, that's going to be me talking. Like, so moving on from this, I just want to ask for anyone, like, again, you can unmute. Yeah, you can unmute or you can just type, it'll be good. But yeah, within your own LC or your own team or individually, like for the oGV product, so looking at it from the oGV functional sense, the marketing sense, the TM or finance aspects as well, what's actually working for your team, you, or your LC? Yeah. So again, feel free to unmute as well, or you can just type.
I think for RMIT, it's really going out of the way to look for projects, because a lot of our members, they put in a whole lot of effort just looking for projects to cater to the individual EPs, and apart from that, action spaces as well. It's, like I've shared before, the how would I say, directed action spaces. So those action spaces whereby we focus either on lead nurturing or lead nurturing action spaces, or just making making call action spaces to do with making informing informing APs about um different about the events that will be happening the following week. And then apart from that, for my team, it's building that relationship or maintaining that relationship, especially with the pipelines, and constantly, like, also checking, like for me it would be checking up with my team members once in, like, midweek or as often as possible, just to follow up on what they're doing, because the weakness for my team is time management, and they tend to forget a whole lot of things, especially when they also have to balance uni work. So yeah, and then for LC as well, what's that called, we do the KSSW, keep, start, stop, way forward, and it really helps because it's not just communicating within individual teams, but it's communicating on a whole, as a whole product, and we get to hear what other people feel, and like it's really helpful. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks, Alyssa. Anyone else? Does anyone else want to share? Just like what's working for you individually, as a team, as an LC, for the oGV product? Yeah, just from your own perspective. Thanks, Danny. Anyone else? If not, just let me know so we can continue. But like, use this space, yeah, like to share, because a lot of people are facing similar things, but at the same time, a lot of people also like it's a good space to learn from each other what's actually happening and what people are doing. Especially because yeah, like half the people here are either team leaders or VPs, more than half, so almost everyone. If no one has anything, wave is like. Could you let me know if at least if at least it's a wave? So do people like are people thinking or just need time or like anything? Okay, I'll move on to the next question, which I hope people have. All right. So in terms of again, same question, but in terms of the challenges, like what's not been working for oGV product for you as an individual, as a team, as an LC? Either one, not all of them, up to you. But like, what's not been working?
I think for our LC and RMIT, I don't really see the synergy between Mac and OGX. So when Mac has events, the OGX team is not really hyped about it. So it's like it's very hard to get them to actually promote what the Mac team is trying to execute. And like the teamwork between the two of them are pretty like separated. So it's really hard to to make good teamwork between the two teams.
Thanks, is it Sheila? Yeah. All right. Anyone else? Like, yeah, what's not working when it comes to oGV product in your LC, or yeah, in your team individually?
I would say following up on people. I mean, yes, we do put in the effort, but but it gets really tiring as well, because sometimes they may not be responsive, but you do know that they're pretty interested in it. And at other times, it's just time management, poor time management on my team, at least, because that's what I'm also struggling. Yeah, and the whole synergy thing, because RMIT.
Awesome. Thanks, Alyssa. What about QUT, UWA, Monash, what else? UQ, ANU, Macquarie, UCID. Yeah, I think that's all the LCs here. Oh, and UNSW. What specifically with getting applicants? Like, is it more? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, what specifically with getting applicants? Okay. All right. Thanks, Sammy. Yeah. More or less. Yeah. But does anyone else have anything or? Okay, I will keep going on. All right, so thanks, Alyssa, Sheila, and Sammy for that. Just wrote that in so for people later they could see. Yeah, but one of the big things that I know, like off the right here, some of the issues that like Alyssa, Sheila, and Sammy brought up, it is stuff that other LCs and other teams here in this chat itself, I know it has been working for them. And this I know is like talking to VPs, talking to LCs, or even seeing it. So it's like, how can you utilize these spaces to actually like learn from each other? Not only that, like not only use these spaces, but like rather than wait till a conference, for example, utilize like online channels to actually learn from each other, like how are people doing it. If follow-up culture is strong in one LC but isn't strong in another LC, how can the LC share that like why it's so strong, or how they make it so strong, or what they do to allow for it to be that way. Yeah, and one thing like going on from this is like over the next 2 weeks as well, we'll definitely be having a lot more oGV webinars, but more in the sense of like just these 2 questions, not the whole data and everything, but more understanding, okay, what's working in your LC or your team and what's not working, and how can we learn from it, and what's the challenge, and how can we like hack out a way forward for you. That's just an FYI. Yeah, because there's like 20 minutes left, I'll start to move on. Yeah, like some of the biggest things that like whether you were thinking about those 2 questions individually or anything is that like when it comes to what's working in your LC, focus on that. Don't focus on what's not working. Don't focus continuously on the bottleneck. Yeah, don't focus continuously on the bottleneck. Like you do need to address what isn't working, but at the same time, focus on what's working and let that allow for you to do more. Or allow, like, yeah, it's play off your strengths. In the same sense, also learn from others. Like I mentioned, as an entity or ISEC in Australia, we're very, most, like, out of 11 LCs, most LCs are going through the same things or the same challenges and so on. But and sometimes within an LC, you don't know a way forward, or no one in the LC knows a way forward. So use spaces like these, use online channels to actually learn from each other, not only as team leaders, not only as VPs, but like allowing for anyone in your product to learn from each other, like getting members to help each other, rather than just waiting for a conference to happen and like learning about it all there and then doing it when it's too late. Yeah. Okay. And then, yeah, so one thing I do want to kind of recognize as well is like, with the Facebook group, for example, this is one thing that me and Pat really want to drive to allow for people to learn from each other. And a few of the things here is just like when Brooke from RMIT and Akeef from UNSW, they were sharing in the Alyssa was sharing in the commission chat and Akeef was sharing in the commission chat about like what was working in RMIT and UNSW, and then I got them to share in the group so it's available for everyone. In this sense, like their resources, what's working for RMIT, what's working for UNSW, you can share it with the rest of the entity, because yeah, at the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing. Like it shouldn't just be, oh, it's me versus you, but like how are we doing this for the country, how are we doing this for the individuals that we're sending on exchange. And then from this as well, also like the few people, like the few members, it's like when people are saying like how do they approach different situations, like how can everyone in the product like learn from each other, but also provide input as to what they do to allow for it, like how they approach it in their own LC. Like doing things like this, you actually learn from each other. It's how you can how you can reach out to people going through the exact same like challenges as you, and in turn, like you can do so much more. Yeah, so I think like that is like one thing I really would I really encourage is like how can you reach out to each other, learn from each other to actually do more, not only people within your own region or your own LC, but across the entire nation. I know for me personally, like in my current role as MC, some of the people I reach out to are like MC VPs from around the world, because I know they're going through similar challenges. And I know like, yes, what they're doing might not be the exact same or might not work for Australia, but I can still understand how they're doing it, or what's the mindset or what's the thought process behind it. And I can apply that to my own situation. So I think, yeah, do leverage off that as a kind of, as a resource and how you can utilize that in the best way. Again, at the end of the day, we're all here in ISEC in order like to develop leadership in the EPs that we send on exchange, and also in ourselves through what we do and the activities that we do, the operations that we do. So it's like, how can we do this together rather than on our own? And one of the biggest things, I know this was something that was seen at New South Wales StateCon and Victoria StateCon. I'm not sure about Western Australia and Queensland. But yeah, like when the way you actually get the leadership development or do this is like by achieving as an individual or as a LC, as a product. Like the leadership development comes from the achievement that you have as a team, as an LC, as an individual. Like how can you actually facilitate those exchange experiences? Because by facilitating those exchange experiences, that's where you're developing that leadership within other people, but also within yourself. So it's that whole idea of like, yeah, a simple phone call or a simple text or a simple attending a marketing event or a simple idea generation or one-to-ones all allow for us to actually be able to achieve and in turn develop leadership. So how do we do those small mundane activities that actually allow for this greater reward in the end? Yeah. And then at the end, from those membership surveys, some of the big things that we did see was that everyone in the oGV product is actually having a good experience. And when I say good experience, like they enjoy what they're doing. They're being they enjoy what they're doing. They're utilizing their strengths. They're getting a lot of feedback. They like the team environment and so on. But the biggest thing is that it doesn't seem like it's an ISEC experience. And what I mean by that is that where like people aren't being when members, team leaders, VPs, LCPs, then not being challenged enough in terms of what they're doing or what their role actually is or the environment that they're in, or actually being pushed like in terms of actually thinking more critically about how they're doing things. And this is where we, like everyone in the product is responsible for being able to provide this experience for each other, for ourselves, and actually allow for the people that we send in exchange to actually have that leadership to exchange experience, as well as developing us as individuals within ISEC in Australia and actually achieve and have that experience. Yeah, so with that, does that make sense for everyone? I'll go into the last 5-10 minutes. Yeah. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I'll go through the last few minutes. So in terms of the resources that are going to be coming in the next few weeks for everyone, this being more from the EST, from myself, yeah, the main things that will be happening are like an objection handling guide. We're talking to a few VPs and team leaders and members. This was something that people want. Understanding more on visa processes. So for example, as ISEC in Australia, we send a lot of people who are of Chinese nationality, but they can't go to certain entities. We also send a lot of Australian nationality students who can go to a lot of entities. So making sure we have clear understanding about all this and it's collated in one place. Because May is going to be a period where OPS is going to be delivered, a lot of standards are going to be coming in, actually understanding, okay, the frameworks for these from the EST are going to be created and released within the next 2 weeks, within the next week or 2 weeks, depending on like the timeline and everything, and also IXP. So if you have members who want to go on exchange, how can we work on this together as an entity and actually do this? One question I do have is like having everyone here at this, or having like a lot of people here, what other resources do you want for the oGV product, whether it be from a financial standpoint, whether it be from a TM standpoint, marketing standpoint, oGV standpoint? What resources would you like to see or would you like to have? Anything? Expectation setting information, yeah. Specific thing, okay. Anything else from other people? Okay, I'll move on. Yeah, the last few things is, again, invest your resources into things that actually work, like that can work. So don't just shut down ideas without trying them. Like actually think about whether it's feasible, whether it's possible. Just because it didn't work last year doesn't mean it won't work this year. And actually invest your resources also into what's currently working. So use the people who are involved in the product, whether they be members, team leaders, VPs, even partners, to actually understand how can you invest in areas like this. Yeah. Then there's also Action April, so the current campaign going on. The simple thing with it, like I mentioned at the very beginning, it's very tailored towards the current operations that we do. Not only that, there's also a few additional things. And then how can you utilize Action April to actually drive what you're currently doing within your own operations? Don't look at the campaign as something separate, but as part of your everyday work as a team leader, as a VP, as a member. And like the next challenge in a sense is since 1st of January, we've had roughly 7,000 opens. Roughly 40% of them haven't been contacted or assigned an EPM. That's on a national level. And so like because of that, understanding how can we follow up on every single open, every single person who shows interest. The challenge is to actually contact 100% of opens. So that way, as an LC, like how can we do this together as an LC? But not only that, how can you do it with other as an entity? Again, for example, what we did when this isn't the contacting, this is on the marketing side. When I was VP oGV, what we used to do within the region, as VP oGVs, we used to attend each other's. So there was UNSW, UCID, Macquarie, and UTS. We used to actually attend each other's marketing events to actually learn from each other, but not only that, to support each other. In the same sense, how can you actually understand what are people doing when they contact an open? How can you learn from each other in that sense? And then last thing, one of the last few things is feel free to share any resources, any GCPs that you actually have in the group, in that Facebook group. Because again, like I've been saying, that's the area where everyone who's in the product can actually learn from each other, actually utilize what's working in your own team, in your own LC to do so much more. And it's for the sake of the product, for the sake of the entity, and allowing for so much more to happen. When it comes to April, the main focus for oGV as a product needs to be on the entire open to approval process, because this is where it's that peak period where we need to be converting all those people who signed up and actually getting them to be approved, whether they be to winter projects, whether they be to summer projects. And then when you actually break it down, what each function needs to actually specifically do, oGV should be focusing more on opens and applicants. This being because it's the biggest bottleneck, how can we allow for more people to apply? Because our processes from applicants to approves, they're good. They're not the best, but they're good. How can we focus on the initial stage and then allow for more people to come in and then be approved? For marketing, also focusing on what's happening in the conversion activity. So running those conversion events, tailoring emails, tailoring these types of things. As finance, investing in different places where you'll actually see a return. So, for example, if you've been investing in example, if you've been investing in lecture bashes and you've seen there hasn't been a return in it, look at different areas where you can invest in. For example, investing in members, investing in action spaces. Also hearing out what do people in the LC actually have as ideas and looking into these. And for VPs and team leaders, not TM, because TM is something that every VP and every team leader, regardless of portfolio, needs to be doing, should be delivering and executing team standards. The team standards are all there as a framework to allow for operations to happen. They're not something that you do on top of your operations, on top of your oGV or marketing or finance work. It's something that's a part of, it's a framework, it's a skeleton that allows for you to do things more strategically and more effectively. The biggest thing to remember though is that with everything that you have within the product, especially within April, is that you won't know until you try. Don't just shut down things. Don't just not bother sharing. If you don't think it's relevant, if you have something that you feel is good in your own team, your own LC, don't think it's not good enough. Share it, and it will be beneficial to at least 1 or 2 people, regardless of what it is. So that's that being one example. Don't just shut down ideas people have. How can you see what people have, and then just remember that you won't know until you try. And then when it comes into May, so this is in 2 weeks from now, it's actually understanding that because April is about open to approval processes and achievement, May is where we start focusing on value delivery. And then understanding that if we want to focus on value delivery, we need to have the people going on exchange to actually do value delivery. We can't just we need to be focusing on our processes now before focusing on value delivery. So ensuring that's happening. Also starting to prepare and also market and act on summer. So this means getting people to apply for summer. This means marketing events early on. So marketing in May itself for summer rather than marketing in August when you're back at uni. The last few things just to end on is, so this is our current winter where we're sending 54 people on exchange to roughly 18 different entities around the world. And then just imagining if the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we understand what we're doing. We actually learn from each other. We actually understand how members are actually going and invest in them. Like a winter could look look something like this, where it's, I don't know, something like 170. I just put a random number, but 170 completes. But we're sending to more entities, or we're sending to the same entity but more people. And by doing this, it's going back to the whole idea that we're not just doing leadership through exchange. We're doing significant leadership, because it's more than a lot of experiences that will make that significant impact. And not only that, because we're focusing so much on the customer centricity, it's allowing for it to be a significant experience for the individual, for the society, and for us as individuals as well. So keeping this in mind throughout the entire thing. And just remembering that at the end of the day, everything that we're doing in ISEC, in oGV, we're all working towards the same outcome, same thing. So how can we actually learn from each other? How can we actually understand that and do things together rather than look at things individually? That's pretty much everything. Does anyone actually have any questions at all about everything I went through? Again, if nothing, you can just type wave. How often are webinars going to be held? So this one was a once-off one. I will talk with the EST, and we might look into doing one every week, one a week for the next few weeks. I'll find out and talk with marketing, like Pat as well, and we'll post up in the Facebook group about how often they'll be, or how often people will want them. But I think going from that, would you want them? Like, how frequent would you want webinars, or even hacking spaces? And this goes to everyone, not just to Alyssa. Once a fortnight? Okay, that can work. Yeah, if anyone does any thoughts or suggestions as well, feel free to give. Yeah. Awesome. And then I'll talk with the EST, and then we'll see how that will be done on a fortnight, monthly, whatever level. Yeah. If no one has any questions, just want to last, if you do have any questions, thoughts, or feedback that you don't want to bring up here or anything, you can reach out to me online, or even book me in, and I'm more than happy to have a chat with you about certain things within oGV, in terms of how you do things, or just if you want advice or questions. You're more than welcome. Me, also Pat, I don't have a link, but we're more than happy to help out if you have any questions. And then, yeah, with that, that's pretty much everything. Thanks for coming. Thanks for attending. I know it was a lot of content and a lot of information, so people are probably exhausted. If you do have anything, feel free to reach out. I will share the recording of this and the slides tonight, depending on how long it takes to upload to YouTube. So everyone will have access to it. Again, if you have any questions, just let me know. And thanks for attending.